Welcome to the Retirement Made Easy podcast, a show created to be your go-to source for straightforward retirement advice. Best of all, it is presented in a language that you can understand. Are you ready for some straight talk on retirement planning without all the fluff? Well, you found the right podcast. Here's your host, certified financial planner, Greg Gonzalez.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Made Easy podcast. I'm Greg Gonzalez. Thanks for joining me today. I'm a little behind this week getting the podcast launched. We've just been so darn busy at my company, at my firm, St. Louis Retirement Advisors. And what's really interesting in my field is we go through phases, and I don't know if it's due to the economy or you can't put a gauge on it because certain industries go through cycles as well, ups and downs with the economy. But we will get clients contacting us or potential clients contacting us and saying, hey, I need a game plan for retirement. I'm really concerned about my job status and what that's going to mean for my pending retirement. And as I record this in May, over the past 2 months, we've had probably 6 or 8 people contact us, few clients and some that are not yet clients that want a game plan because they are very fearful of looming layoffs or downsizing. And they know, hey, I'm at that age and I'm at that pay scale where I'm at a high risk of losing my job. And I hear this over and over again because let's say the person is 58 or 60 years old and they think, well, gosh, who's going to hire me? I'm at my peak earning years. And any employer that would potentially hire me would say, well, gosh, this person's only got a couple more years until they want to retire. Do we really want to invest in this person? And I've heard many of these same people have said, gosh, they'd prefer to hire somebody mid-career or maybe at the start of their career and they can pay them less money. And that person has a higher likelihood of sticking around longer and they might turn out to be a good long-term employee. So I think what a lot of these people are looking for is peace of mind because they're fearful, they know their job might be at stake, and they don't know where they stand exactly when it comes to retirement. In other words, if they got laid off today, could they afford to retire? How long would their money last? How much money could they live on year in and year out for the next 30 or 35 years? Or if they got laid off today, would they be better off finding another opportunity, continuing to save for retirement for a couple years? But at least the plan would say, okay, there is an end goal in sight. But like I said before, whenever we get these phone calls, whenever we get these emails, typically that's not a good sign for the overall health of the economy. But of course, that is not my prognostication or me trying to predict the state of the economy or anything like that. It's just an observation based on what I do for a living. And it always seems like when we get one phone call, then we get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or a bunch of emails, and it's all asking the same thing. If it's a current client, they say, hey, let's revisit my retirement plan. I know we covered it 6 months ago, but I just want to make sure. And then the other people that they don't have a retirement plan and they're reaching out to us saying, hey, I'm 58 or 60 or 62 years old. I'm going to be laid off. I'm almost certain of it. And I need to know, am I okay to retire? And what do I do? And so that's what I'll say. The most important thing when it comes to a retirement plan, and I don't talk about this enough, is the one thing we don't know is our future career, what it's going to be. We don't know what our health is going to be in the future. Some of us might be forced to retire due to health reasons. Some people are forced into retirement because their company is downsizing. So one of the most powerful benefits of a plan is it covers the what ifs in life. What if I was no longer able to work at age 62? What if my company laid me off at age 63? Where would I stand? Would I have enough money? Because I cannot tell you how many times, in fact, I have somebody coming in later on at about an hour and a half from now. I have a client that was offered a early retirement package with the expectations that if they didn't take this early retirement offer, that layoffs would be coming afterwards later on this year. And luckily, this particular person, this client said, well, I've already got a plan in place that tells me I can retire within 6 months, so I'm good. So moral of the story is get that retirement plan in place ahead of time because you don't know what your job status is going to be 10 years from now, 5 years from now, even next year, and you don't know what your health is going to be in the future. So a plan will help clarify all those what ifs. And if you're someone that doesn't have a plan yet, you can find us on our website, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. There's a form that you can fill out on the website, and that's how we can get started to create a retirement plan for you if you happen to be interested. Today's episode, I am calling 7 Steps to Retirement Security. I was on a webinar recently from a speaker, a guy by the name of Tom Hegna. He's been around in the industry for a long, long time. He's got a book called Don't Worry, Retire Happy. It's a great title, by the way. He seems to be more of the opinion of having insurance products in place, whether it be it annuities and life insurance and all that kind of stuff. But he also brings up some good points when it comes to retirement planning and what to be aware of and what to have in place for a secure retirement. So I changed his methodology just a tad bit because I'm making it my own. But quite simply, let's go through 1 through 7. Number 1, Tom and I both agree, you got to have a plan in place. And what this plan is going to tell you is a couple things, a few important things. Number 1, how much money can you spend in retirement? What are your taxes going to be like in retirement? How long will your money last? What rate of return do you need from your retirement nest egg for your plan to be a success? And if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know that I've met with and I've had the opportunity to warn and caution people saying, hey, you're being way too conservative with your money. And what's going to happen is at some point, you're going to outlive your money and you're going to be just living on a Social Security check. And that's a big risk. So you've got to understand, hey, you need your money to work for you still in retirement. This is your life savings. This is going to fund a happy retirement. And the last thing, and this is one of the most crucial points, is a plan comes up with a tax-efficient drawdown strategy, a withdrawal strategy. In other words, if you're living on $100,000 a year in retirement, where the heck's that money going to come from? Is it going to come from Social Security, Roth IRAs, 401ks, IRAs? Maybe it's a brokerage account with stocks and mutual funds or ETFs. Where exactly is this money going to come from to fund your retirement? Are you going to draw it all from your IRA? That might be a bad idea. So it needs to have a retirement income strategy. And all that means is it's mapping out your retirement income, your withdrawals for 30 years in a manner that allows you to pay the least amount of taxes to Uncle Sam. So you're not overpaying in taxes. So that's all that means. So that's step number 1 is you need a plan and it needs to cover these crucial components. Number 2 is, hey, you got to be able to maximize your Social Security benefits and even understand how your pension benefit works and maximize that income because that's an annuity. Those are income streams that last a lifetime. Both of those, both Social Security and a pension that you might receive. You get a monthly check for the rest of your life. So you need to understand how you maximize that money. And a lot of times we run into people and they had already claimed their Social Security or pension, and we can identify what a big mistake they made because they didn't have any guidance or they didn't really think it through. The third step to retirement security, and over the years, I've become more and more passionate about step number 3, but it's having a part-time income, a hybrid retirement, if at all possible, if your health allows, right? So what does this mean? So if you're able to work part-time in retirement, and let's say you can find something that you enjoy, maybe it's 15 hours a week or 20 hours a week. You might do consulting work. You might do something fun. You might work in an industry that you're passionate about. So what's the benefit of extra cash flow or extra income? And again, we're talking part-time here. Well, it puts less pressure on your investment portfolio. If let's say you're able to make a $20,000 a year working part-time, well, that's $20,000 a year that you didn't have to draw out of your retirement nest egg. And now you just allowed that money to compound and grow for another year because you've got that part-time income coming in. And the other thing, maybe you're able to delay your Social Security benefit. So maybe that grew 8% in that year that you had the part-time income. And that now your Social Security check, if you waited just one more year, would be 8% bigger for the rest of your life. So in a lot of different instances that we see, if someone is mildly prepared for retirement or right on the border of being able to afford to retire, hey, having a hybrid retirement, which means working part-time, getting some cash flow coming in, and maybe it's just seasonal work. We're not talking about 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, stuff like that. No, we're just talking about extra cash flow. Maybe it helps pay for health insurance if you're retiring before 65. So that is step number 3, is consider a hybrid retirement. There's a lot of benefits with it. Step number 4, and I have been saying this since 2020 when I started this podcast, one of the biggest threats to your retirement security is inflation. I've had so many people laugh and say, well, inflation, it doesn't really go up that much. You hardly notice it. And then since the pandemic, with rising prices and supply shortages and inflation going through the roof, people are finally, and especially our clients, are saying, man, you were right. And it feels good. It feels good to hear that you were right. Hey, inflation is here to stay. And if you think otherwise, please understand that inflation will be with you for the rest of your life. Today, what a dollar will buy today is the most it will ever buy in your entire life. The dollar menu has gone away at McDonald's. Not only does McDonald's not have salads on the menu anymore, but it's a $2 menu. Soon it'll be a $5 menu. It's inflation. A dollar doesn't buy what a dollar used to buy. So you've got to consider, hey, what is inflation going to do to my retirement? If my costs are going up, let's say on average 3% a year, that means your retirement income, the money that you're living on, needs to go up step by step with your costs. Think about it like this. If your costs went up and you're still working and your boss calls you in and says, hey, I'm giving you a 3% raise. Well, you hope that your costs went up less than 3% for you to experience a real benefit there. If your costs only went up 1% and your boss gives you a 3% raise, hey, that worked out. But if inflation was 5% and your boss calls you in and says, hey, guess what? Great news, you're getting a 3% raise. Well, you actually are 2% in the hole. To give you another example, I've got a client down in Florida. He's actually one of my oldest clients. He's a super nice guy. He golfs a lot down there. And a lot of his golfing buddies, retired 20, 25 years ago on pensions that were $50,000, $60,000 a year. And those pensions are fixed for the rest of their lives. They were living good 20, 25 years ago. Those same pension checks, they're frozen for life, and the costs are just eating them up. Inflation goes up and up and up, and trying to live on that fixed pension check is tough. So what they're having to do is offset and draw more and more out of their retirement nest eggs to make up for the fact that their pension check is flat for the rest of their life. So that's a huge risk. And it's because of inflation, the rising cost of living. Things aren't getting any cheaper. And I've heard over the years, people say, well, if costs go up too high, I'll just move somewhere cheaper. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter where you move. The cost of living is high. But I can certainly understand why people are moving out of California, because the cost there, you look at a gallon of gas or something like that, it just seems to be outrageous compared to what we pay for a gallon of gas in the Midwest. And by the way, your retirement plan should account for a rising cost of living, either 2.5%, 3%, 3.5%. So throughout your retirement, you've got it mapped out that your retirement income will grow and keep up with your rising cost of living. That needs to be mapped out. Because what happens is if you do a plan, and believe me, I've done hundreds of plans. And if you live on $60,000 and you do a plan and you live on the same $60,000 in the planning software for the next 30 years, your plan is going to be easy to afford to retire. But if you include that inflation component, which is real life, that $60,000 now grew by 3%. And then in our second year of retirement, instead of living on $60,000, we are now spending $61,800. That's a big difference. Step number 5 is protect your dollars from unnecessary taxes. Now, I'm married to a CPA. I have a bachelor's in accounting. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm friends with quite a few different CPAs. So I have a good grasp of tax planning. And I have just witnessed so many people over the years that just like throwing money out, just throwing it right down the drain because they're paying more taxes than they need to. And I think it's just because they don't have anybody to guide them or to kind of shake them and say, don't do that. Stop doing that. You're just giving money away that you don't need to. And if you're paying more taxes than you need to because you don't have someone to help you map it out, it's not just 1 year. It's, let's say you're retired 30 years from 62 until 92. It's all of those excess taxes for 30 years that can really, really add up. I'll give you a perfect example. Someone that says, well, I'm going to do all these Roth conversions, and they just do them without understanding the real consequences. So let's say somebody's retired, they do these Roth conversions, and they say, whatever the taxes are, I'll just pay them. I guess that's one strategy. What that's going to cause is it may cause you to pay capital gains on your brokerage account that you otherwise didn't have to pay capital gains taxes on. You may be paying more taxes on your Social Security than you would have had to pay otherwise. You may have a Medicare IRMA tax, and then your Part B premium goes up and it goes to this outrageous amount because, again, you did this big Roth conversion and you weren't really understanding the consequences of doing so. I see this quite frequently, that people just don't take their time with it and meticulously calculate, hey, what's really the consequences of what I'm doing when it comes to taxes? And they think they're in the 24% bracket. And after making mistakes, now they're in the 32% bracket, which is an 8% difference between the last dollar taxed at 24 and dollars taxed at 32%. Or maybe it's the net investment income tax that people forget about totally. And that comes into play when married filing jointly is $250,000 and above. So that is step number 5, is have an ongoing tax strategy. Be very meticulous about it. And it's okay to get help. It's okay to hire a CPA, certified financial planner, certified public accountant, enrolled agent, some kind of tax advisor to help you make these decisions. Because in the long run, it'll save you a lot. Step number 6, and we've talked about this a lot on the podcast in the past, is have a plan for long-term care. I speak with clients on a weekly basis who have parents or aunts and uncles that are in independent living or assisted living here in St. Louis and across the country. And I hear costs anywhere from, on the independent living side, $4,000 to $5,000, $6,000. And then assisted living, memory care, anywhere from $8,000 to $14,000 a month. We have to decide how we're going to address that risk. And believe me, those costs go up every single year. If those costs are $10,000 a month now, what are they going to be in 20 or 25 years? We have to have a plan. What is our strategy to address those future potential costs? Because those costs can add up and they can really ruin somebody's retirement. And if it's a couple, if it happens to be spouse number 1 that needs the care, well, how are we going to make sure that spouse number 2, the surviving spouse, is then taken care of and has enough to sustain their lifestyle for the rest of their life? So that's step number 6. Step number 7, and last but not least, the last step to retirement security is use your home equity wisely. For a lot of people, their home is their biggest asset or one of their biggest assets, and it's an appreciating asset, hopefully, if you live, in the right home, in the right neighborhood and all those things. But that home equity is an asset, and you've got to kind of decide, hey, what's going to make the most sense here? Are we going to use that home equity to benefit our kids one day, legacy planning, or is that home equity going to be used as like a quasi long-term care policy, or what are we going to use that home equity for? If you have a second home, maybe a vacation home, something like that, again, it's the same decision. How is that going to be used later on down the road in our retirement years to benefit us? Because that's an asset, that's equity that a lot of people forget about. Think about, when is that home going to be paid off if it's not paid off already? And if that's the case, I would think that's going to greatly impact your retirement income needs, not having that mortgage payment. So those are the 7 steps to retirement security. I hope this episode has been helpful. If you have questions, go to my website, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. It's all I do at my firm is help people 50 and over plan for a successful retirement. I'll see you next time. And remember, always dream big. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, please consult your attorney, tax advisor, or financial advisor prior to investing. This is a hypothetical example and is not representative of any specific investment. Your results may vary. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices mentioned are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. The SmartVestor program is a directory of investment professionals. Neither Dave Ramsey nor SmartVestor are affiliates of St. Louis Retirement Advisors or LPL Financial. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.
Thank you for listening to the show today. Check us out at our website, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. And if you want some help from Greg, submit your questions at the bottom of the page or sign up for a 30-minute retirement coaching session with Greg. We'll see you next week.